What's hanging, young hero, besides your head?
Welcome to Giant Size Violence, an Ultra Mega podcast. I'm your host, Tommy, and joining me today are two guests I'm very excited to welcome to the show. Joining us once again is our friend from the Henshin Men, Nathan. Welcome to the show. And also joining us is his co-host in common. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Oh, okay. Tommy, you're getting the lore. Co-host in common.
Yeah, I know, no wrong show. This is more of a power trip crossover here, but
power trip. One of my 97 other podcasts,
right? Yeah, I mean, it's you just love the attention, apparently.
You've heard of Hydro Hog. I guess I'm the attention hog.
Well, we're wah wah wah. Okay, there you go.
But for my listeners unaware, Nathan and Michael are from the Power Trip podcast, a show that's looking over the entirety of Power Rangers, one season at a time, taking on that ambitious project and a little bit more from what I hear is coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
We're a little crazy.
Yeah, I mean it started back in 2020. Because during pandemic, I had nothing better to do than to watch Power Rangers. I was working from home. I'm a working art director, graphic designer, what have you, and so I had the privilege of working from home through the pandemic. And but everything around me was shut down. So what else am I going to do except, of course, watch Power Rangers? And I had not watched Power Rangers in probably 15 years, and I came to realize, I think it was around I think it was around season 3, maybe Zeo. I came to realize that maybe rewatching these things as an adult, there's actually more to this franchise than what people want to give it credit for. So at the time, our co-host in common, Travis Alexander, we started a magazine called Kaiju Ramen, and I think we were on issue 3 at the time, and I got the itch that I wanted to write an article series for that magazine, and I wanted to base it around Power Rangers. I just didn't know what the subject matter would be. I knew it was Power Rangers. I just didn't know exactly what avenue I wanted to take it. And then I was having a random conversation with my friend Nathan here, and he says, "Oh, so you're going on your power trip?"
Right.
And it kind of went from there. I was like, oh, that sounds like a great name for the article series. And then the more I kept thinking about the article series, the more I thought, well, what if I started a podcast? At the time, Nathan was not my co-host, but what if I started a podcast where I go through each season of Power Rangers and just discuss them in broad strokes, like talk about themes, the Rangers, the Zords, the aesthetics, the whole 9 yards. Because at the time I was consuming a lot of podcasts, particularly Power Ranger podcasts, because I was getting back into the franchise. And I noticed something about Power Ranger podcasts that exist now. They typically only do like episode by episode or just a batch of episodes at a time from a particular season, which is great because it allows them to go really deep and granular. But the problem I was finding is a lot of the subject matter they were talking about in certain episodes was just maybe not something I either cared about, or seasons I wasn't familiar with, or I would have to go and dig around and find the actual conversations I wanted to listen to. And I thought, well, what if I just talked about the franchise in broad strokes with go season by season, which I realized was very ambitious.
More ambitious than I think you realized.
Well, yeah, more ambitious than I realized. You're right, Nathan. And so I enlisted. I had a group of friends that I could pull from. Everyone turned me down except for Nathan. So he was
crazy
because he was co-host by default. And we've just been having a good time going through season by season, which I realize again is incredibly ambitious. And I did not realize how much work was going to go into doing something like this. But essentially the Power Trip podcast is a companion audio podcast to coincide with Kaiju Ramen Magazine's article series. So we're getting ready to publish issue 6. And in issue 6, it's part 2 of the article series where I discuss Green with Evil and the lasting effects and that lasting legacy of Green with Evil, because we've seen what that simple 5-parter has done for the franchise. Comic
And for the non-Power Rangers fans in the audience, this is the 5-part miniseries that introduced the infamous Green Ranger to the Power Rangers franchise.
Right. And if you want to get an audio companion to that particular article, Michael, it was a patron of the Monster Island Film Vault at the time, and he requested Green with Evil several months ago. So you can go listen to us talk about that on that show.
It's the curse of knowledge. So thank you, Tommy, for bringing me back around. So it's the curse of knowledge where you just know things and then you start talking and people are like, what is this? What is this Green Ranger you speak of? But go ahead. Go ahead.
I am curious on your show, though, since you guys have been releasing those episodes at a pretty breakneck pace considering how long each season is. Like, are y'all marathoning through every single episode every season?
Up until, I think, Time Force for me, I was just going back and watching some key episodes because I was watching them last year just on my own time for the fun of it. But once we got to Wild Force, it turned into a marathon because neither of us had watched everything up to that point. I
had watched a little bit of Wild Force before the purge, before Netflix took Power Rangers off.
Most of it.
Yeah. Well, I should say, yeah, you're right. Most of Power Rangers came off of Netflix. And I had watched Wild Force up to that time. So I was like Nathan, I was going back and just rewatching key episodes because leading up to that point, I was watching Power Rangers for fun, not because I needed to record a podcast on it. So I would say for me, I started really, I guess, binging the seasons when it came time to record Ninja Storm, because I fell off around. Originally, Lost Galaxy was where I fell off of the franchise during the original run of the show. And then I had already watched through Lightspeed Rescue, Time Force, and I just had to go back and do a refresher. But the Disney era was completely new territory for me.
Although you did squeeze in Dino Thunder and RPM before the Power Purge.
Yeah, you're right. Before the Purge, I did squeeze those two in per recommendations from some of our podcast friends.
Now, for those wondering why the shift to the Power Rangers focus, well, we kind of had an opportunity that fit perfectly for both our podcasts. Mine being a show dedicated to the R-rated or mature audience skewing toku shows and movies, and Nathan and Michael being my resident Power Rangers experts. This seemed like the perfect opportunity to cover a little short film from 2015. An infamous short film of many names, that being Power/Rangers, or Power Rangers Unauthorized, or Bootleg Power Rangers, whatever you want to call it. The incredibly gritty Power Rangers film you probably saw shared on Facebook around 2015.
Yeah. It was directed and co-written by Joseph Kahn. I hope I said that right. Produced by Adi Shankar and Jill Harden. And it was also co-written by James Vanderbeek. And Dutch Southern. There's a lot of screenwriters on this, but it was produced by, I'm trying to see the production company on this, because it was Adi Shankar is the head of the studio that put this together. I'm just trying to see what the name of the studio is, because he has a whole YouTube channel and he's done a whole series of movies, or short films, I should say, that are like this.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like the reputation of this movie, or the fan feelings toward it, have kind of changed over the last 7 years. It's not terribly well liked among the fan community from what I've seen, but I'm curious how you guys felt about this when it first came out, and how you felt about it now revisiting it for this episode.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I liked it when I first saw this in 2015. I originally liked it because I had been away from Power Rangers for so long that this was kind of a weird reintroduction to that, and I was like, wow, this is like very like edgelord type Power Rangers stuff. And as I've kind of went back through the franchise, it has its place. I think that I think that the satire that it's meant to be is lost on a lot of people, and I totally understand why people would want something like this to be official media from Hasbro or some official media from another company. I honestly don't think Hasbro would tackle something like this.
Well, what's kind of confusing is when this was originally released on YouTube and Vimeo, it got a lot of hits very quickly, and then what was confusing is apparently Saban, because Saban owned the franchise again at the time, got wind of it and apparently said, "Oh, okay, this is cool of you guys," but then gave them a copyright strike and got it kicked off for a day, and then there were a bunch of protests, and then they said, "Okay, fine, you can put it back up."
I mean, yeah, it like I said, it has its place. It's not my favorite fan film. I think Hyperforce has been my favorite iteration of fan things that have come out.
No, that's actually considered official media.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. Hyperforce is considered official. Hyperforce is considered official. It's just going back rewatching it now for this show and refreshing my memory on what it's like. I don't know. I'm conflicted about it because, again, it has its place for people that want that gritty, rated R, rated MA style, but also Power Rangers. But I'm almost conflicted because if you go so far with it, it almost ceases to be Power Rangers. So it's just really, it's almost really, it's a weird thing. I don't hate that it exists. It's just not necessarily for me.
Right. I don't remember when I first saw it. Yeah, I honestly don't remember. I don't remember if someone shared it with me or if I saw it on social media, but it was the edition that was on YouTube, which, in case anyone cares, it is slightly censored on YouTube.
Only slightly.
Yeah. But yeah, really, only slightly. But I know I watched it the first time on YouTube, and like a lot of people, when I was watching it, I didn't realize that this was meant to be satire. Because, like I said, Adi Shankar has a whole series. You can go on his YouTube channel and you can see a series of short films based on pre-existing geek properties that are meant to be satires. And this in particular, like just to give an example, another one that he's done, and I've seen this one, is he did a Punisher fan film, interestingly enough, that had Thomas Jane, who played the Punisher in the 2004 movie, that's called Punisher Dirty Laundry. And apparently that's considered satire too. But when I watched it, this is when I watched it, but then when I read it was supposed to be satire, I was like, how is this satire? This really does feel like a Punisher story. But whatever. I watched this initially and took it seriously. The satire was lost on me. And then I started hearing, oh, this is supposed to be a satire. He's poking fun at how, especially at that moment, it was popular to take stuff that was meant for kids or families or whatever and do these dark, gritty reboots. Make it for the grown-ups and all of that sort of stuff. And that was lost on me. Watching it now, again, knowing this, I see it, but it's the only thing I can think of to liken it to would be like RoboCop. But I still feel like the original RoboCop was still pretty plain with its satire, despite the fact that it's doing a lot of crazy things there as well. It's very ultra-violent, but the ultra-violence was part of the satire.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know it was satire either until I think I had either read it or I don't know, maybe you even told me this, Nathan, that it was satire. Because when I first saw it, I did not see it as satire. I thought it as someone's very serious attempt to remake Power Rangers in their own vision. That's what I thought it was.
Right. And there's a lot of people, I know, Tommy, you said that it's not well liked in the community. You say that, but we've gotten requests from our listeners, from the Power Trip listeners, wanting us to cover it. And they might acknowledge the satire, but they don't view it ironically. They take it seriously. And there's still a contingent of fans who take it seriously and think this is the direction that Power Rangers should go.
Yeah, I was definitely in that camp when it came out, not realizing this was meant to be satire. And I remember that the 2017 film was, I think, in production at this point, and like a lot of us were kind of hoping this was some kind of trailer for that or something that was going to influence that in some way.
Right.
But now looking back, knowing it's satire, that honestly makes me appreciate this even more, because like Power Rangers at its heart is not really meant for an R-rated audience.
No.
But
No.
At the same time, R-rated Power Rangers is also a thing that me and obviously a lot of other Power Rangers fans want to see. And while I believe the correct way of doing something like that is like Ultra Mega, like make something that's similar but its own thing, so you don't tarnish a brand by doing it, I think this is basically the only way R-rated Power Rangers should exist reasonably, is in the form of an unofficial fan film that's meant to be kind of a joke about itself. So, yeah, like I think it's kind of the perfect way to do this if you decide to do R-rated Power Rangers.
Yeah, Michael and I have been having some discussions about this, and it was like, how far can you take something with your reimagining or remaking or whatever it is before it ceases to be the thing? And I do feel like, even though if you watch Super Sentai, which is the Japanese source material where Power Rangers comes from, there are some that are pretty dark. There are also some Power Ranger seasons that are actually kind of dark. Time Force, kind of dark. RPM, really dark. And we just finished recording on RPM over the weekend. RPM, like I said, is pretty dark. 2017 movie gets pretty dark. The Boom Studios comics at points get pretty dark. But they don't veer off into R-rated territory. Not quite. And I feel like that's a line that it just can't cross. If it crosses that line, it's not really Power Rangers anymore. Even Super Sentai has never gone quite that long. Although, a few weeks ago on Twitter, people were freaking out because apparently somebody decided to flip out over the fact that there is the mildest of sex scenes in Abba Ranger, which is where Dino Thunder came from. It's like, blink and you miss it. It's between a husband and a wife, and you barely see anything of it.
I struggle, honestly. I'll admit I struggle with things like this because creatively, I really think it's useful to have things like this exist, because it fills a gap for a lot of people. It filled a gap for you, Tommy. It fills a gap that people, I think, long for, where they want to see they want to see grittier versions of properties they maybe grew up with, or they want to see, probably a better way to say it is, they want to see reimaginings of properties that maybe have gotten stale, or just have a consistent aesthetic, or a very predictable aesthetic that's run throughout it. So having something like this that kind of shakes up the status quo is extremely appealing to people, and I get like why this thing exists. Because I can't remember 2015. I can't remember what season was around at the time.
I think it was Dino Charge.
Maybe about Dino Charge, Super Mega Force, something around. And
Dino Charge. This came out literally 2 weeks after Dino Charge started.
Right. So at the time, given what we saw with the Disney era, with when Saban took over the franchise back from Disney, and he partnered with Viacom to get it up on Nickelodeon, as we've noticed with Samurai, it is very geared towards children, and it is very silly.
Yeah, we're watching Samurai in preparation for our next main episode, and it's been difficult.
So I can see why the desire for something existed.
Yeah, and especially when this came out, like this was kind of getting toward the tail end of this specific brand of movies, but like ever since the first Michael Bay Transformers movie, I know I wasn't alone in wanting something like that for Power Rangers, and frankly, like that's still to some level what I want to see. Like I think the perfect Power Rangers film is kind of in some sort of Goldilocks zone between what this is and what the 2017 movie is. It just like, I actually really like the framing device and story of this. There's a lot of things I actually like better in this, not everything, but
it's an interesting concept because it almost reminds me of what happened in O-Ranger. Now, O-Ranger, for anyone who's not familiar, O-Ranger was a Super Sentai series put out around 95, 96, and it became the stock footage reservoir for Power Rangers Zeo. And so in O-Ranger, the Machine Empire, spoiler for anyone who's not watched O-Ranger, sorry, the Machine Empire actually end up winning. They actually end up taking over. And there is this resistance, by the end of the series, there is this resistance of Rangers that has to rise up to defeat them, to defeat the Machine Empire. And it reminded me something similar to that. So it would not surprise me that the creators of this short film did not go and take a lot of inspiration from O-Ranger.
Right. I was going to say the people who worked on this clearly know their Ranger lore. At least there's their early to mid Saban era Ranger lore. And I feel like there's even a few things in there that are meant to be kind of metatextual.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just to give everybody a quick plot rundown of this, basically what we have here, we probably should have led with this. The whole thing, basically what happens in this is that it opens up with this dystopian world where the Machine Empire is won. And then there's a little bit of narration. We see a battle between Rangers and Zords in the Machine Empire. And then it cuts to Rocky. And I'm going to mention some of the actors because there's some Hollywood actors who are actually in this technically, particularly if you remember early 2000s television. But we cut to Rocky, played by James Vanderbeek, who was on Dawson's Creek back in the day.
Mr. Dawson's Creek himself.
Yeah. And he is interrogating Kimberly, played by Kaylee Ann Sackhoff. I hope I said that right.
Katie
who
Sackhoff.
Famously played Starbuck in the remake of Battlestar Galactica. And he's trying to get her to tell him where Tommy is. And it's through their conversation during this interrogation that we start finding out about a lot of things that have been going on with the ongoing war. We see a few clips of what Tommy is doing. We see what some of the other Rangers were doing, but we also find out all the other Rangers are dead. And Rocky thinks that Tommy is going around offing all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And do we want to just give spoilers?
Yeah.
What's the spoiler policy on here?
Yeah, and I mean, come on, if you want, stop this podcast and watch the 17-minute short film. Like, heck, you could have squeezed that in with us as a voiceover to this point.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
hell, it's not even 17 minutes. It's like 14,
it's more like 14.
14 and a half.
Right. Yeah, this will be like your first episode where you could have live watched the entire piece of content and then recorded well over and still not even be your longest episode.
Yeah,
right,
basically. But no, so spoiler warning, official spoiler warning. And then we find out that by the end of the whole thing, as the conversation gets progressively more intense. Oh, and by the way, Rocky has a bionic leg. And we find out that Tommy shows up, picks a fight with Rocky, kills Rocky, and then...
No, Kimberly kills Rocky.
Yeah, Tommy loses to Rocky. I'm kind of sore about that.
They have a fight. Kimberly shoots him. And instead of being overjoyed at being reunited, Tommy says, "You're not Kim. Kim died in my arms. I don't know who you are." And
Which
then
is
it
an
turns out it's
interesting
and then it
twist.
turns out it's Rita.
Yeah.
Played by, I might add, played by Carla Perez, who played Rita in the show.
Who was the face actress for part of season 2 and then into season 3 and into Zeo, yes.
Yeah. So she's the only person who reprises her role. Mm-hmm. Now, we do get cameos from a few other characters, Ranger characters from that time. Apparently, General Clank is in this. I must have blinked and missed him.
No, you did not, sir. He was the Asian gentleman in the white suit.
Oh, the North Korean.
Oh,
right.
okay.
Okay, so that's not a Ranger character. But we see Bulk and Skull, who apparently joined the Machine Empire, became terrorists, I guess?
Meth heads that are willing to sell the French meth.
Yeah.
Which,
because apparently the Machine Empire makes better meth.
and I would like to say that's literally the moment that the short film kind of loses me, because it opens like honestly an awesome piece of content that should be official, like the Saving Private Ryan style intro with the Zord battle.
I will say that was clever. That was very clever.
I don't know what the Rangers are shooting at with their M16s in the middle of a Zord battle, or who's driving their Zord, but whatever, it still looks cool. The like whole city landscape, Machine Empire backdrop, all awesome. And it's literally the moment Bulk and Skull show up that the short film, I think, goes too far. Like, killing Jason, that's one thing, but then it's like, I'm pretty sure they drop a C word almost immediately.
They do.
Yeah, like, that was kind of where I thought it went a step too far with the maturity, or just, like, the depiction, and branching a little too far from what this show is or should be.
Yeah, yeah. It was that, and not the Zach flashback where we find out he likes having threesomes with Divatox and Scorpina, even though we're not told that's who they are. I had to look that up online. By the way, a fun fact: if you've listened to the Power Trip, you know I'm not a fan of Divatox, but hilariously, Divatox in this thing is played by Brie Olson, who's a porn actress, and she grew up in my hometown.
Well, they're both porn actresses, Nathan.
Oh, well, but I'm only singling out Brie Olson because she grew up in my hometown.
Ah, okay.
Fort Wayne, Indiana. Good Lord.
I was really hoping you hadn't read the credits, because I was hoping to pull that out later, that, yeah, the women making out in Zach's bed are, for no reason, Scorpina and Divatox.
You know, for of course research purposes, I had to go back and watch that particular scene.
Which, by the way, that's the part that gets censored on YouTube.
Yeah,
because there's flat out nudity in it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've been watching the YouTube cut, so.
No, no, it's on Vimeo. Go on Vimeo. There's flat out nudity in it.
I told Nathan, I said, there's no corset, there's no mask, there's no gold anywhere. That's not Scorpina and Divatox. That's just two naked women.
And I said, I'm the researcher here. And I'm like, IMDb and Wikipedia all say Scorpina and Divatox. So,
well, what makes more sense to me is that, no, canonically, that's not the Divatox and Scorpina, because those two never interacted in the show. That's just coincidentally their stripper names.
You know what? I'm willing to go with that.
Both of them, like, Divatox is already not, like, that sounds like a dominatrix, and Scorpina, like, oh wow, yeah, I have a scorpion on my lower back. Like, yeah, I can see a stripper taking that.
If like the girl actually had a scorpion tattoo on her stomach or something, that at least that would tell me that's who it's supposed to be. At least a little hint.
Well, you know, I'm willing to go with that. I'm willing to go with that headcanon. That'll be my new headcanon as well.
Yeah. And then after that, Zach goes over and snorts some cocaine because that's what you do, right?
I mean, look, when you put out dozens and dozens of failed hip hop keto tapes, I mean, what else?
Okay, the hip hop keto bit was probably the most RoboCop thing in this whole thing. He puts a hip hop keto exercise tapes, and it is a very clear parody of Tybo. Okay, like, that's probably my favorite part of the whole thing right there, because that was genuinely funny.
It was.
Because that actually seems like something they would have done in Power Rangers.
They did release karate tapes for Tommy. They should have given Zach a hip hop keto tape.
Right.
Well, Walter Jones, I think, was just kind of done.
Well, it was that, because it's that kind of really funny line, and it sticks out because it feels almost out of place. Where Rocky is confronting Kim about Zach, and she says about those hip hop keto tapes, and it just feels kind of, that part feels a little bit out of place, especially for that particular conversation.
I think I would agree. I think it's just like, I'm not sure where else they would slip that in, and I really like the world building it gives and how quickly that sells the kind of character Zach was. Yeah, I mean, in 10 seconds, you kind of get a feeling for where this person was between his time as a ranger and now his return.
Yeah, and I wonder if the intention there with that was a kind of, don't meet your heroes sort of a thing, because it's showing that Zach has a very different public persona compared to what he's like in real life. Where,
well, there's also the line from Rocky that went in the same scene where he says, "Yeah, he went." I'm paraphrasing. He went from being a ranger to selling false hope to fat kids.
Right.
It's that kind of. That's that line. It's kind of funny, but. It is. I think you're onto something, Nathan. Where it is kind of a satire of don't meet your heroes because they will always disappoint you.
Yeah. Because Zach's public persona is this really fun exercise guru, but in reality, he's a black ops He's a Black Ops soldier who has threesomes with supervillains, snorts cocaine, and kills lots of North Koreans.
I think where I take issue with that, because it is kind of like the highlight action scene, at least including a ranger in the clip.
Right. It's
like,
the only time we really get in an extended sequence with a fully costume ranger.
Like, there are a few things we can get into later that make me feel like this could have been any teen superhero team that they swapped out. And I think the big problem here is that, like, it's the Black Ranger against a bunch of human gangsters and soldiers. And, like, I get why they're choosing that for this, but I think just, like, be more in line with the franchise. I would have enjoyed it a lot more if this was, like, maybe a holdout of Rita's forces, or, like, some of the last remaining putties or monsters. Just because, like, it doesn't seem right seeing a Power Ranger fight human people.
Yeah.
Which is, interestingly, is something that has been touched on a little bit in Carl Dutton's Power Rangers audio drama podcast.
Well, it's also something that's been touched on in official media too, because we just watched RPM.
Right.
Because in RPM, the Rangers, to give spoilers for RPM, Venjix, who is our big bad for RPM, turns out he actually has sleeper cells within the government organization that he activates.
And the civilians.
So
including
kids. So that gets pretty dark. So we've seen we've seen this idea of, we've seen Rangers fight civilians before. But I just feel like I'm with you, Tommy. It just feels a little bit either out, I don't know if it's out of place or it's just jarring in this moment.
Now, I will say, like, what I find funny about literally every form of Power Rangers film we get here too is that the lack of suit footage of the Rangers, because this is about all we get other than a couple quick flashes in that Saving Private Ryan opening. The 90s movie, that was a problem. The 2017 movie.
And a little bit at the end when Tommy says Kimberly died in my arms.
Which I do love the design choices they made on the Green Ranger suit there.
Yes. I did really like that, where the Dragon Shield's made of energy. That was cool.
That feels like something that the 2017 film, if they were able to if they were able to do a sequel with the Green Ranger, I feel like that's what they would have done.
And honestly, on the suits, like, this is part of where I feel like the 2017 film would have done well to be more like this, in that, like, they seem much closer to the original suits than that movie did. They still look a little goofy, I'll say. Like, there could be some more refinements if they had several millions of dollars to throw at it. But, like, kind of that classic look that you can immediately recognize, mixed with the whole, like, it's a Power Rangers, where are they now story. Like, I feel like that's what the big budget Power Rangers film should have been, to capitalize on that nostalgia. Just, you know, instead of showing them all die from suicide and drug overdoses, instead make it a, like, let's get the band back together story.
Well, and murder. Don't forget the murder. Actually, everything was murder.
Some murders are more murder than others, okay?
Yes.
It is touching a little bit on something, Nathan, you and I talked about. So we talked about this a few weeks ago when we're getting ready to come on your show, Tommy. We talked about, because on our show we like to dig out some thematics for a particular season. So Nathan and I were kind of putting our heads together and trying to figure out a theme for Power Rangers Unauthorized, and the theme that we determined was the closest, I guess, was the loss of innocence, because that's kind of what we're getting here. You're taking what has been perceived as a very child-friendly, very safe for work property, and just twisting it to where it doesn't feel like the original thing, it's stripping the innocence from it. I think that theme also kind of speaks to our characters here, to our Rangers, because no longer are they the goody two shoe cleanup crew Power Rangers we got to see in season 1. You know, they're real people that have made some really bad mistakes, because, like, at the end of the day, they're human and they're just trying to survive this world they've been thrown into.
Yeah, and I actually know you're right on the money there, since Adi Shankar released a video afterwards that's kind of a goof, or I think it's meant for laughs, where he talks about why he made this, and he talks about exactly that, like him remembering the Power Rangers as, like, child soldiers and wanting to explore what it's like to, you know, these kids that had to miss school to fight aliens and, like, see warfare right up close. Like, they wouldn't have good grades, they wouldn't have normal lives, like, they'd be messed up and they'd have PTSD from being turned into superhuman child soldiers.
Yeah, yeah. There's that line from Rocky when he's talking to who he thinks is Kimberly. He says, "We were children. We were children called to fight an intergalactic war for forces beyond our understanding." Or so, I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
So it does. It's a really it really is an interesting concept. I will say that regardless of my personal feelings towards Power Rangers Unauthorized, it is at least a very interesting concept. That does have some deep themes. Go ahead, Nathan. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think I was thinking of it in terms of Tommy, like when we talked about Ultra Mega and what Ultra Mega is, and I know you're working on your own comic book project that would be along these lines, and I am not opposed to the idea of what is presented in here, but I think it should be explored in a Power Ranger pastiche as opposed to, like we've been saying, making it an actual, slapping the Power Ranger name on it and passing it off as such, because this isn't really Power Rangers. And honestly, people, you need to watch this with the mindset of this is satire and it's not meant to be taken unironically.
Yeah, like you could replace the title with VR Troopers and it would work the same, like with the same footage and everything. Or if you just scrub one or two scenes, like you could make it Teen Titans or Ninja Turtles or a number of other things.
I mean, it's kind of funny because it was originally the short-lived DC streaming service. They basically did that with the Titan show a few years ago, right? I remember that being like, people were like, "What are you doing? This isn't what we want." And then it was meme-tastic, F Batman.
It's got 3 seasons. I'm not sure it's even canceled yet.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. People are like, "We don't want this," but then the show came on, and apparently enough people watched it. It's been on for 3 seasons. Yeah, so I feel like in some ways that's kind of what this is, but I don't know. It worked for Teen Titans.
One thing I think this movie is missing, given its world and everything we see, is why is the Machine Empire actually the bad guys here? And that, okay, we know Zordon was recruiting child soldiers, and we never get an actual explanation of only youth could get these powers. We know Rita and Zed, obviously awful.
Is that their super couple name?
Yes,
super couple name. Yes.
Although I think Zeta would be better. I think that should have been their kid name, if nothing else. But
good lord, we're not talking about Thrax.
We're not talking about Thrax.
Not going there. Okay. But yeah, the Machine Empire, we see the skyline of Angel Grove, and it's an incredible special effect. Looks pretty nice. We see Rocky's got a nice bionic leg that seems to be treating him just well. He can hold his own in a fight against Tommy for sure with it. And Billy is on top of the world, with his technology merger with them.
Apparently he's Elon Musk in this world, which is funny. That was my joke on the show when we were talking about Mighty Morphin Season 1. Is he invented a flying car. How is he not Elon Musk in this universe?
Did you notice that they did manage to slip in a reference to Billy being gay in the...
Well, to David Yost being gay, yeah.
Yeah, but well, they're making the character in this.
Yeah,
right.
They are.
It was incredibly subtle. I didn't notice it until I think I had to scrub and go back and they reveal it it's revealed in the dialogue where Rocky says, "Oh, Billy's probably the one that you didn't sleep with," and then and then it cuts to some magazine covers, and apparently Billy was married. He married his husband or was dating somebody, and so that's kind of a deep cut reference. To
according to Wikipedia, it's his husband, and it was played interestingly in that photograph by Adi Shankar.
Okay.
What confuses me about that though is similar to Diva Tox and Scorpina being in the credits. I saw the last credited character was Sestria, which was Billy's alien girlfriend briefly in the show. And I really looked and have no clue where she is here, unless maybe she's also making out naked and not in the YouTube version.
Oh, jeez. I only saw 2 women in that one when I watched it on video.
I don't know where she would have been.
Yeah, I thought maybe she's in the background of the funeral, but the funeral guests are billed separately. So my assumption is she's in a deleted scene because it's the last named cast member.
I mean, Trini is only in this as a picture, but that woman gets a credit. So
yeah, I mean, maybe she was in the funeral scene where Trini's memorial, but I don't recall. But I'm with you, Tommy, that I think that it just probably was a scene that got put on the cutting room floor that just never made it.
Here I am checking Ranger Wiki to see if it says anything.
Now, on the note of Billy and Trini here, though,
sure.
How do we feel about the subtle or not so subtle references to real life events with these characters, like David Yost being bullied for his sexuality on set, and Trini's actress tragically dying young in a car accident?
I mean, there's even the kind of metatextual line where Kimberly tells Rocky, "You were never really one of us." Ow.
refresh my memory, Tommy. When did David Yost come out? When did he have the interview? I don't have it. I can't recall, but it was like,
I mean, I know he was getting harassed for it on set, so I don't know like when he went public, but it sounded like
when he was on the show, he was still figuring himself out. I've heard him say that.
Right. Well, he what I'm asking is, I'm wondering if this film coincided, or if it was. I'm assuming it was many years after, because I think David Yost, the actor who played Billy in Power Rangers, came out as gay in like 2009, I think 2009, 2010, in an interview he did. I honestly thought it was a nice way to honor that character in a weird way, even though he shot himself in the head.
No, Rita made him do it.
That's where it gets a little touchy for me, because I know David Yost has specifically talked about like feeling suicidal because of his treatment on set.
2010.
Was it 2010? Okay.
Yeah.
It's very reminiscent of when, the guy that plays Ninja Storm, the guy that plays Ninja Storm Red, his name is escaping me right now, Nathan. Medina, is that his last name?
No, that's Wild Force.
Wild Force. No, yeah, you're okay, Red. We'll just go with Wild Force Red, because Wild Force Red, his real life events came eerily close to being mimicked in a season we're going to be talking about soon, Samurai, where he's literally a bad guy that wields a katana sword. And if anyone knows the backstory,
Pua Magasiva was Ninja Storm Red.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's an episode of Ninja Storm that is weirdly dark. And if you know what happened to Mr. Magasiva, it's shockingly true to life.
It is. And the fact that David Yost has talked about on record of being suicidal or not wanting to continue, not wanting to end his life because of how he was treated, which is a travesty. It is. I honestly personally don't know how to feel about it, because it's dark and it fits the story, but it's almost, I don't think disrespectful is the word I'm looking for, but it's a little bit too true to life for people would be personally comfortable with if they knew all the details. I don't know. I personally thought it was making him, I personally thought making Billy gay in this was a way to honor the real life character. But again, to your point, Tommy, when it shows him committing suicide, that takes a very dark turn that is somewhat related to, or is very related to, real life events. And that's tough. That's a really tough thing.
Yeah, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that like maybe they didn't know of David Yost saying that it went that far, and like they do reveal he just got the same treatment as everyone else, so I won't harp on him too much for that.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the case of Trini, like I'm glad that she died off screen rather than doing something else that makes the character look awful, just because it feels a little more respectful to the dead.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I feel like it gets lessened later, because we find out that this was all being orchestrated by Rita. She was basically using her magic to get into the Rangers' heads and make them do things. Because it's not just Billy that it happened to. She got Zach to do the same thing.
I mean, if it were not for her, it's safe to assume that Billy would have been at least a somewhat well-adjusted billionaire, for as well-adjusted as he probably can be working for the Machine Empire, selling weapons or creating weapons, I should say.
Now, kind of rounding out, I believe it's after that point that things finally come to a head with the Tommy Rocky fight scene and such. Well, I do love the fight scene. I have to admit, I think this is kind of I know this is probably intentional almost, but this is taking the Dark Knight tropes to their extreme, and that when Tommy shows up, he's literally just teleporting around the room, stabbing guys from behind. Like, you see the people firing off their guns in that direction, and then he's just somewhere else. And we know Tommy doesn't have his powers, so, like, what gives?
He's a ninja?
Okay, canonically he is a ninja. I can't.
I was gonna say he's Tommy Oliver, and he just Tommy Oliver's all over the place.
Look, it's.
I mean, let's be honest. Tommy in this is the one Ranger who still remains a hero throughout the whole thing. Everyone else is dead or traitorous.
But I mean, they undercut the whole like, well, it's Tommy freaking Oliver in that. No one's favorite Ranger, Rocky, defeats him. Like, he wins the fight. Like, Tommy would be dead if Rita didn't shoot Rocky in the end.
This is true. You know, when Nate and I first talked about this, when we first talked about Unauthorized, we took it as they were maybe doing a tribute to Tommy Oliver because, you know, he is Tommy freaking Oliver, and there is still a very strong sect of the fandom where they say that Tommy can beat anyone that he comes across, which we can assume that's not true, but
yeah,
still,
I mean, Tommy Oliver has gotten a little bit of a Batman level reputation where they just think that you can, take on anybody and win.
Well, it's, you know, it's like, it's kind of like how I wrote in that second article. It's like, you know, Tommy Oliver, the character of Tommy Oliver, regardless of how you feel about JDF personally, the actor, Tommy Oliver has reached, you know, Captain America, Superman, Batman, you know, Iron Man status, because that character is so ingrained now in pop culture. Now, it's not as ingrained as, say, Marvel characters now, because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is just taken over, even with people who don't even care about comics or don't even care about the nerd stuff. They just watch the movies.
What astonishes me is that thanks to the MCU, a bunch of B-list characters, some of which even me as a comic book fan, I either didn't know or barely knew existed. Now they're all rock stars.
And you know what? I will fanboy hard enough to say that I would buy an argument that Tommy Oliver, in fighting condition or some level of peak, may be the greatest warrior on the planet in terms of fighting skill. But yeah, I'm not going to say he's the most powerful Ranger, that he beats anyone by default, but yeah, like, I feel like an argument could be made given, like, has anyone actually fought things more powerful than Tommy has one-on-one, and does anyone else have that level of experience, like, literally doing martial arts to save the planet as he does?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, until Dino Fury, he's the only Ranger who ever fought Lord Zed, canonically.
And weirdly, Tommy headcanons, I feel like I can make a convincing argument that Tommy getting into NASCAR racing or stock car racing as he's retiring as a Power Ranger makes total sense for his character.
As much as I love Dino Thunder, its timeline kind of mucks everything up.
Well, I think because that's always been kind of a weird thing with Tommy. Like, why did he want to become a stock car racer? My personal headcanon to that is he's seen and done so many things. Tommy's a thrill seeker. He wants to be tested. He wants the adrenaline rush is what I really my headcanon for Tommy is he's an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah,
but
yeah, you're close. And my headcanon is that Tommy's just spent the last, like, 3 or 4 years of his life having to be in shape and fight evil and drive dangerous vehicles for a living. Mm-hmm. And now, like, he's graduating and needs to figure out what he is going to do what he's going to do with his life. And, like, well, he probably shouldn't be fighting people with martial arts in his spare time if that's what he has to do as a ranger and put himself at risk or, you know, unfair advantage. So him taking a job where he needs to stay in shape, wear a helmet, and drive a dangerous vehicle, shit, he has years of experience for that. He's more qualified to be a stock car racer than anyone else his age.
I mean, you're not wrong.
in the then, like, I don't know, 7 years between that and Dino Thunder, like, hey, maybe he works through this whole adrenaline junkie thing, gets it out of his system, sees some therapy, or like Kat talks him out of it, or maybe his divorce does something about that. But
that's hitting a little too close to home right now.
Oh shit. But yeah, like I think there's totally a realm where Tommy gets into stock car racing and then decides to instead pursue a career in teaching in that 7-year span.
Yeah, I mean, you go so far with it, and you almost kind of look at yourself and say, enough is enough. Like you have to wonder, when is enough enough? You know, and maybe after Turbo, he just got it out of his system, like you said.
Yeah, or like, who knows? If I have to put this to a comic, we see Tommy in a hospital bed, and what's he watching on TV but footage of Countdown to Destruction happening, and he has to accept the fact that because of a stupid car accident that could have been avoided in his stock car racing career, he wasn't there to fight on the day that the world needed Power Rangers more than ever.
Now that's really messed up and dark. That's enough to drive somebody to drink for sure.
So what you're saying is that's how we got this Tommy.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. There we go. It all comes full circle.
There, I got us back on topic. There you go. So this is gritty. I too used to drink a lot, Tommy. It was like, I have to be a hero again. I will be the resistance leader against the Terminators. I mean, the Machine Empire.
You know, drinking. I would imagine drinking used beer out of a trash can is not the most ideal, and that would probably show how big of a man you are. Actually, you know, I don't know. I feel like I'm just making shit up now at this point.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is now that I think about it, this movie's version of Tommy does look eerily similar to modern day JDF because he grew a beard. So.
No, this version of Tommy kind of reminds me of who's the actor that played Daredevil in the
Charlie Cox?
Yes.
Yeah, Charlie Cox, yeah.
Yeah, he kind of looks eerily similar to him.
Yeah, the guy who played him in this is named Russ Bain. I don't know what else he's done.
Yeah, badass name, if nothing else.
You've only adopted the dark. I was morphed into it.
the welcome to the dark side of the morphing grid.
Now, that bringing us to the end of the film, though, I am curious about any further thoughts you have as far as, like, flaws, things you liked, or, like, things you think other Power Rangers media could actually take from this.
You know, this is so incredibly different. I don't even know what flaws to give it because it's such a radical departure from what we've seen from the franchise before.
Right.
As for what the franchise could actually take from this, I think there is definitely a world where, like you said, Tommy, where you have the aesthetics of the 2017 film, you have the dark grittiness of this, but maybe not pushed to quite edgelord status. I feel like the Power Rangers, the audio drama, is doing something very similar to this. It's not an official piece of media. It's a production by our friend Carl Dutton, and they're doing something very similar to this, where they're taking the original lore and maturing it, like really maturing
and
it.
Streamlining it in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
so just to get and grounding it. So just to give an example, so Rita in the audio drama eventually becomes the Space Witch, but when we first meet her, even though it's revealed later she's descended from actual Space Witches, she's not a Space Witch when we first meet her. She is the commander of a starship. It's not until later on that they set up a base on the moon. And
it's due to a crash landing. It's
due to a crash landing. Now Lord Zed is still the emperor of all he sees, and things like that. So he didn't muck around with Lord Zed all that much.
Yeah, and I suppose I should mention to the folks at home that we're actually talking to a cast member of the Power Rangers audio drama right here. And
I spoiler warning, I play Rito. So
Yeah, Rita Revolto, Rita's skeleton brother.
Well, that's the other thing. That's some grounding. He's not a skeleton man, but he's a soldier who wears armor that looks like a skeleton.
Mm.
And he is not a buffoon. He is a smart aleck.
He's just a smart ass. Yes.
Yeah, he's a smart aleck, and he doesn't call Lord Zed Ed. He does call him Ed, but he doesn't do it because he's an idiot. He does it to mock him, because in this version, Master Vile, or Master Villi, as the name got tweaked a little bit, is basically a power broker who's funding Zed's empire building.
Mm.
So he's basically got Lord Zed by his skinless balls. So Rito's just like, I could do whatever I want because you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, because they're all working with daddy's money.
Yeah.
But back to what I was saying, I think that there is a middle ground between this that goes so far to the extreme, and then maybe what the 2017 film did. Because the 2017 movie, the 2017 movie tried to be Transformers, but with Power Rangers. I still think that to a point, maybe not necessarily as much as I used to say, but I still feel like the 2017 film was made by people that were kind of a little embarrassed that they were working on Power Rangers, because it went so far into Iron Man Transformers territory that
X-Men, I think
X-Men,
it would be more, yeah.
Yeah, X-Men Transformers territory that it almost could have not been. It could have almost been a lot like this, where it ceases to be sort of the thing that it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm kind of of the same mind. And since we see so little of those morphed Rangers in that movie, like, it's again, I think you can replace it with any other old property of heroes driving giant vehicles.
I mean, hell, you could replace it with Beetleborgs, and all you would really have to do is just change up the costumes a little bit.
And I thought it didn't quite lean enough into the Transformers aspect. Like, it could have used a little bit more balls to the wall action, I guess, or a movie about a line of toys should have more than 8 minutes of action, especially if it has superheroes. We should
about
actually
20,
see those heroes.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But I would agree with your endorsement, though, that, like, I think the audio drama is that Goldilocks zone between these two things. And
I mean, yeah, because it's very true to what came before. It keeps just enough of the cheese to add some flavor, but it also does crazy things like mind control Tommy sleeps with Scorpina. A lot of people were not prepared for that.
Oh, hey, both these things have Rangers sleeping with Scorpina. Go figure.
I mean,
can you blame us? Or blame them, I should say? I mean, the actress who played Scorpina was very fine. I'm just saying.
Well, I think in she was both a femme fatale she was more so a femme fatale in Zyuranger than maybe Power Rangers. She didn't get quite as much screen time in Power Rangers as she did in Zyuranger. But she's definitely in the audio drama a very fatal woman in that one. So I mean, it's what Carl and his team,
and she cheats on Goldar with mind control Tommy.
Right. And what Carl has been able to do with the audio drama, I know we sing its praises all the time, but it really is kind of that, like, if Hasbro could take, barring the comics, I think we could reasonably say that even the comics are more mature than the actual mainline show, than what the current show is, Dino Fury.
Yeah. Easily the two best media for any adult fan are, the comics and the audio drama. The comics being, like, the best thing you could possibly do with the established lore and TV show history, and the audio drama being everything I want from a remake of Power Rangers and short premiere season. Yeah,
for sure. There's just so much media and lore that Hasbro, or if Hasbro wanted to do whatever the next phase of the franchise is, whether it's a film, which they're talking about now, whether it's a multi-shared universe that's more mature, I think that there is a world, and I think Hasbro would actually be kind of smart in doing this if they wanted to invest the time and the money. Have three different versions, or maybe two, maybe narrow it down to two, but ideally I would want three different versions of Power Rangers that hit those different age and sensibility demographics. You have an animated series. Why Power Rangers has not gotten an animated series by now is beyond me. You have an animated series. Let them do that for the children. You have what they're doing currently with the mainline show Dino Fury, that kind of goes. It's more like CW tween, that tween young adult ish age demographic, and then you have something like what they're doing with the Boom Studios comics that leans a bit more mature, that still pays tribute and pays homage to the lore like the comics do, but there's something for the older fans. Because one thing that we noticed when we were doing our Saban era ranking is when you go from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to Time Force, the series seems to grow up with its audience because it gets progressively more mature as the series goes on. And then it just kind of starts from scratch. It starts over with the Disney era. It would be really fun to have something like having them adapt the Boom Studios comics to a film or a TV series and throw it up on HBO Max or whatever streaming service they want to put it on. Market it as Probably Netflix, yeah. Market it as Power Rangers for our age demographic, for the people in their 30s and 40s that grew up with the franchise but are old enough that can, understand that can wrap their minds around some of these deeper, more nuancy things that only really come with age. Because there's a lot of stuff in those Boom Studios comics that younger people can't really understand because they don't have enough age and experience under the belt. And I know I sound like an old man right now, but
okay, boomer.
Yeah, I know. I'm an elder millennial, sir. Thank you very much. And I just really think there should be ideally a three categories of Power Rangers: cartoons for the kids, what they're currently doing for the tweens and younger adults, and then something for people in our age demographic that skews a little bit more mature. I think that's a good balance. What they do, I don't know.
Well, I mean, Marvel and DC have been doing stuff like that for years at this point. And I know I think part of the hesitation that there's been for it is that they're afraid of cross-pollination and confusing audiences. I'm like, yeah, but like I said, comic book companies have been doing it forever. And everyone understands, okay, I'm trying to think of an example. What was it? Like Batman Brave and the Bold is not the same Batman as, Batfleck or something like that. We can all understand that.
And at the end of the day, it is still Power Rangers. And unfortunately, Power Rangers doesn't have quite it has the pop culture credentials with Mighty Morphin and its legacy, but I don't feel like Power Rangers is really front of mind for a lot of people. Or they hear the word Power Rangers and they say, "Oh yeah, I know that. I remember that show. That's the one with the colored spandex and the dinosaur robots."
It's not spandex.
Okay, there we go.
You're welcome, RPM
but
fans.
I just don't think that Power Rangers yet has enough social capital for a general audience to take something like that seriously, which is a lot of the reason why the 2017 film maybe didn't do as well as it should have.
I think I'd agree with that, and I think as this kind of moves into its Netflix era, it's really going to have to figure out its audience and figure out how to appeal to all the age ranges. And I have confidence they can do that with what I've seen from them do with things like Masters of the Universe. But bring things back to the movie itself. Do we want to move into the awards?
Yes, I'm really.
Now it's a true crossover. We are now getting to the power trip portion of the episode.
Yes, and for people of the listeners of Giant Size Violence, for anyone who's not listened to our show on our podcast, we like to give out awards for the different categories throughout each season. So why not give out awards for Power Rangers Unauthorized? And so I guess, are we going to do the same awards we always do? Tommy?
I think that was the plan.
Okay, that's the plan. So for our first award, it is our power range of motion. And this is the award we typically give for the best stunt or fight scene. So, Tommy, this is your show. You go first.
All right, so for this, I had considered the Zack fight, but ultimately decided to go with the fight between Rocky and Tommy towards the end, just because there's some genuinely pretty cool fight choreography. Like, especially there's like a kickflip off a wall over a sword. And like, okay, that's peak stunt work right there. The Zack fight is more CGI.
He blocks Tommy's sword with his leg, with his bionic leg, which is just clever.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. What about you, Nathan?
I wrote down several candidates. I considered the Tommy versus Rocky fight. I also considered Zack versus the North Koreans. But after you brought it up, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to have to go with that because it's probably the most Power Ranger-y thing in this, while also probably one of the best reimaginings of a Power Ranger thing in it, which is the opening. That very Saving Private Ryan style opening that starts with a first person view of, I believe it's supposed to be Jason. Because I think there was some red there, and we see his hand and he's running around. We see Zord fights and monsters and all kinds of cool stuff there. And I'm like, you know what? If you just took that in isolation, this would be really cool. And then it just goes insane after that.
Well, I guess I'm going to be basic and say that my Power Range of Motion award is going to go to the fight scene with Zack versus the North Koreans. Just because the fight choreography is not bad. I do agree with Tommy. The fight scene between Rocky and Tommy is a little bit better choreographed, but the fact that you see Zack fully suited up in his Ranger armor, that is the closest thing that feels like Power Rangers, I guess, in this particular iteration.
Yeah, and even though we've never seen anything like this happen in the show, I love that helmet throw stunt so much in this.
Oh, it does.
Yeah,
he kicks the helmet off of one of the goons and then just puts it on. That was cool.
And he says it's morphin' time. I mean, it's how much better can you get?
Morphin' time.
It's morphin' time. And
it's morphin' time.
Yeah. And then interestingly, they don't give Zack his traditional weapon. He beats them all up with a knife.
Which, that's something that always brought it down for me, is like, there's just really goofy positioning when he takes out the general in the end. Like, the way he's got that knife in his neck. I've always thought that was like the one weird scene.
I honestly thought he stabbed him in the ear. Like he plunged the blade into his eardrum. But that wouldn't make sense. That blade would be too big. You need an ice pick for something like that.
So for the next award, it's our Ultra SFX Zord Award. And this is
you said it right.
This is the award we typically give to the best special effect. So Tommy, same as before. Go first.
Yeah. So mine, I'm actually going to give to probably one of the least significant special effects, but the view of the future Angel Grove looks really good. Like, that's a really impressive future skyline. And
very Blade Runner.
Yeah, maybe that's like some stock special effect that was developed on a higher budget for something else, but I mean, for a scene that really isn't like necessary for this movie necessarily, especially like how good that shot looks compared to all the other gritty scenes we see of normal people. I was very impressed with the level of CGI there.
Go ahead, Nathan.
The Dragon Shield of Energy. Just because that is that is so clever. Sorry. So what? We can have the same one. It's fine. It's just I just thought it was so clever. And that's probably the most interesting concept. Well, maybe not the most interesting, but it's one of the most interesting things they do in this by making it energy. So I'm like, that would make it so easy to, to transfer and things like that. And it makes sense that he could use something like that to block energy attacks and things like it. Just the science fiction fan and writer in me, which is like, ooh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, probably for my award, I'm gonna have to. Well, I was gonna go with the Dragon Shield, but just for the simple fact of being different, I'm gonna go with some of the cinematography as well for this because it is really good. It is really, really good for a fan film. And I don't say
this
that
is very cinematic. This is shot very cinematically.
I love the low angles. I love those really tight low angle shots, especially like when they do the zoom in on like the Pink Ranger helmet. That really kind of tight shot where you have the machine, what looks like a member of the Machine Empire army and the Megazord fighting in the background. I just really like the cinematography for this short film, and it is incredibly well done. It is incredibly well done. If I were new to the franchise and didn't know anything if I didn't know anything about Power Rangers, I would assume this was official, honestly.
Didn't you have a funny runner-up?
I did, and I was debating on whether I wanted to show it or I was going to say it, but my runner-up is the naked Scorpina and naked Divatox.
You're such a dude, bro.
See, that's the only reason you wanted me to say it, because you want to punch down on me like that. Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate it.
I mean, it's your fantasy, right? You got the corset off, so.
Oh boy, we're moving on. So the next award is. I'm
terrible, I know.
Yes, you are. Our next award is our more phenomenal Mad Lib, which is what we give to our favorite lines. So Tommy, start us off again.
All right, I had a hard time finding a favorite line, but I think I have to go with Rocky saying Zach's been selling false hope to fat kids.
That was funny, actually.
I want to go next because I want to piggyback off. I want to piggyback off of what Tommy said, and say that it was between about those hip hop keto tapes, or the one I actually ended up choosing was bullshit is an ugly color on you.
Oh, you stole mine. So now we're even.
I just think, honestly, I think there's a lot of really good exposition in this short film. Like they're not only giving us interesting visuals, but they're also telling a fairly, I would say, compelling story through the dialogue as well. And they're sprinkling, like I think we addressed it earlier, but they're also sprinkling in little bits and pieces of the actual lore and, real life events for the franchise, as well as little inklings of what happened in universe with the show. And I thought that was really interesting. The dialogue for this short film is really solid, in my opinion.
Yeah, and after sitting through about 6 or 8 episodes of Samurai, I welcome this acting and this dialogue. You know what? All of the profanities, the questionable word choices, whatever, I'll take it over what's in Samurai right now.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, Nathan, did I really steal yours, or are you going to have...
Yeah, you did.
Oh, well, that sucks. Okay.
It's all right.
So, for the last award, it is our I can't believe that happened award, and this is the award that we typically give to the craziest moment, or the moment that just made us kind of question our life choices. We're not quite sure yet. So
all of Overdrive, got it.
Right, all of Overdrive. So, Tommy, what was your award for this one?
Mine was maybe a little bit outside the film itself. Mine was the rabbit hole I had to go down when I saw Divatox and Scorpina show up in the credits and start searching.
Okay.
Like, where were they? Okay, if they're the strippers, is there some hint back there? No, there's no gold or anything here.
Research purposes.
The only thing they got in common is that, this woman does look like a Victoria's Secret model, much like the original Divatox.
For sure.
Yeah, well, what doesn't help is I don't think the hair matches for either of them.
I mean, Hillary Shepard.
Well, no, Scorpina, yeah, but
Hillary Shepard was kind of blonde, I think. She was more brunette than blonde, but she was kind of blonde.
I had to spend too much time on the internet looking into this just to find out that they gave the naked women little fun names, and I'm still not happy about that.
So mine is a little bit of a cheat. My I can't believe that happened moment is actually, no, I'm not going to give that one. I was going to give it to this thing existing, period. But I'm actually going to give it to the fact the twist ending. the twist ending where Kim is dead. Rita is apparently the orchestrator of all these things that it's going on. And I really thought that, like, when I first watched it, I didn't know when I very first watched this back in 2015, I didn't know what to make of it. But I was okay with it. And the fact that they brought in the actual face actress that played Rita in the show, it just made it better. So I'm going to go with the twist ending. Rita's the one that really, she's the one that finally killed our Rangers.
It was Repulsa all along.
Nathan, what is your award?
Oh, well, I had two choices. One's already kind of been touched on by Tommy, which was the whole Scorpina and Divatox thing. And although I put down and Zach sleeps with Scorpina and Divatox and starts crack because of course. But my backup for that is the hip hop keto tapes because I forgot those. When I watched it again for this podcast, I forgot that was in there.
It's such
and given that I kind of rediscovered Tybo during quarantine because I was trying to do some exercise in my apartment, I'm like, oh, this is even funnier now.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and it's such a immediate cut to that, and easily like the least expected thing I'd say up to that point in the movie.
It's definitely really disruptive. I think definitely like really, really, really disruptive for.
Yeah, well, and it's about the only light moment in the entire thing, so it's kind of welcome.
But with our awards given out, then I would like to thank you both for making the time to join the show and initiating this crossover. Yeah, if we ever find other R-rated Power Rangers content to cover, I'd love to have you back.
I mean, if you ever want to interview cast members from the show or interview Carl, let me know. I can make it happen.
Oh yeah, I would very much like to have that happen. Just waiting for the show to be in a better, more available place, and same with my voice.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I mean, I think Carl and their team would love to come on and
talk. There's also Legend of the White Dragon next year.
Yeah, that is true.
I didn't want to be mean by asking this in case, like, I don't know, a cast member ever hears this, but part of me wanted to ask, like, okay, would you rather see a feature-length version of this get made, or would you rather see the White Dragon actually get made?
White Dragon's almost done. So.
So my morbid curiosity says White Dragon. My fear that it's not going to be a good movie says let's just give us an extended cut of this. So I honestly don't. I'm leaning towards White Dragon just because he's been working on that thing for 20 years. It's probably not been
10 years.
10 years. He's been working on that thing for a decade now, and I kind of just want to see what all the hype is about. So I don't know. I'm really conflicted because, I don't know. I think I'm going to lean White Dragon just out of morbid curiosity, like I said.
I think I'd prefer a feature-length version of this, honestly, just because, like, there's a lot of bad Power Ranger short films out there, or Power Ranger fan films. And, like, the directing and acting quality in this is frankly better than anything that's ever been in official Power Rangers media.
It's definitely better than Samurai. I'll say that, because oh my god.
Yeah, or at least it's more consistently good across the board. Like
I was going to say, at least these actors have more charisma than a corpse, which is.
But no, this was a blast. Thank you, Tommy, for having us on. This was a pleasure. We would. I think I don't know when this episode is going to go out. But we're going to try to.
Yep.
We're going to try to co-release this at the same time you do. So for both audiences, and we'll make sure to point people towards you and your fantastic show, and hopefully we'll get to talk to each other again soon.
Yep. And if you want to talk anything, any other, quote unquote, more mature tokusatsu, call me to tap into my Henshin Men, credentials. So, I mean, we found each other because of a kiter.
Yeah. And if Henshin Men or the Power Trip ever want to dive into the comics associated with their media, I mean, like, I've read the Kamen Rider manga, I've read every single Power Rangers comic, so happy to lend my knowledge to either of those.
Oh,
that would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cause we're hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to cover the comics on the show.
And I do have you penciled in for a Monster Island Film Vault episode next season. So
yeah, can't wait. All right. Well, thank you once again for joining us on the show. Yeah, for those of you that want to hear more from Nathan and Michael, I can highly recommend the Power Trip podcast for my fellow Power Rangers fans that don't have the time or motivation to rewatch the show themselves. And similarly with the Henshin Men, it's really great to know there's two guys out there watching every wild episode of Kamen Rider for me, so I don't have to watch them myself.
But you should. You should.
Yeah, I do really want to see that Starfish Hitler episode, because
was Kamen Rider. That wasn't the original Kamen Rider. I think that was Kamen Rider V3. I want to say. And someone posted the clip of that online, and I was not prepared.
I mean, it's a really jarring image when you see it. That is for sure.
Oh no, this wasn't just an image; it was the actual thing. And when I was watching, I was like, "What the heck is this?" And then when I saw, like, oh, it's Kamen Rider X. That's what it is.
Had the caption of, I guarantee you will not guess how this clip is going to end. And sure enough, sorry I buried the lead, folks, but I still think if you look this up, you're going to be surprised.
Yeah.
But with that, though, that brings our episode to a close. I'd like to say once again to check out the Henshin Men podcast, the Power Trip, and the Monster Island Film Vault, and most of all, the Starfish Hitler clip on YouTube.
And the Power Rangers audio drama, because I am Rito.
Very much the Power Rangers audio drama. But yeah, while we're still waiting for the next issue of Ultra Mega, we'll continue plugging away, checking out other great Tokusatsu content. If you have any recommendations of your own, you can send them our way on social media. You can find us on the Giant Size Violence Facebook page, on Twitter as @UltraMegaCast, or email us at giantsizeviolence@gmail.com. I'd like to thank you for giving our podcast a chance, and give a special shout out to artists Ray Day Parade and Dark Moon Home Video for designing our logo and cover photos. Our intro music is You're an Ace Kid by Demon Dice from their album Alcatraz. You can check out their EP, Shut Up, Get Happy, on iTunes and Spotify. We hope you join us again as we continue to explore the movies and shows that Ultra Mega draws influence from. But until then, take care and remember to do your part in preventing the spread of the Kaiju virus.
Freedom can't be seen by downcast eyes. So raise your gaze up till your 10 feet tall and shake your fist to the sky. Refuse to die or let them make you small, cause they love just to see you convinced you're just a brick in the wall. But you're not just a brick in the wall. La da da.